Hello and welcome to another race in Spa in the wet. This time not as a live stream, but this was actually a very good race, and so we will have a look on what happened and how this race developed. And for sure we want to have a clean race, as this Japanese driver was suggesting. And you can see the lobby is not full, so it's very late in the Asia Pacific region. But I wanted to use my Chinese account to have a look on whether we can have a good race there. So let's just jump into the race. So we start in the Honda NSX, the car we also used in the last live stream. And it turns out for me to be going quite well in the wet, although I typically don't like the Honda NSX, but in this environment it works well for me. 13 drivers. And we can see that we can make a proper start. Very important, don't start too early. Keep your foot on the brake long enough. And you can see others don't have a bit of an early start. We just wait until we can start. And we have to immediately go to the middle, trying to avoid hitting those people who are slowed down. The advantage is we have a bit of space behind us, so less risk in the first corner. Trying to brake early enough. Reaching the corner apex quite well behind the Beetle, and we go on in the position 6 now 7. You can see on the right side someone was pushed into the barrier and we get this position, but we are getting closer to the number 6 just trailing, and we got now a push in the back and we have to make sure that we don't lose the car. So it's pretty tough here in the wet to not lose, to not spin. So we're just trying to do everything to actually get back on the track. So I was joining the track in the middle, which is not nice, and actually I stayed in the middle. I didn't want to go left or right because just want to be stable. The people can overtake left or right. Maybe not the nicest rejoin, but yeah, so it's also in the wet, don't have so many choices. So we get on the Beetle away, so we just can overtake. He made a small mistake, and small mistakes in the wet here are already pretty difficult. So we gained our positions, and now let's settle into the race. Quite 4 cars in front of us. Pretty hard battle, so one person has a penalty. That's also a good sign for us, and we are catching up and now need to join this battle and see that we can make progress. So we're staying on the outside here, braking late, trying to go to the inside. It doesn't quite work, so the Australian's still quick enough, and we had to lift throttle, and you can see immediately here how much time we actually lost by just having this small correction, because we can't just pull full throttle again, so you have to stabilize the car and be careful always. But here now there was a mistake or a push I didn't see, but we gained the position number 7 without much fight, so that's good news for us. Right hand corner, going back to second gear, accelerating. So I typically accelerate once the car is straight. So just do a little bit on the throttle now. And once the car is straight, go on full throttle. So that's the safest way to do it. So you can typically shift into a higher gear than you would typically go. But that works, and if you're careful, it also is stable. So I always go for the route of being more careful rather than spinning once, because you can lose just so much time. Trying to squeeze here on the right side, going next, braking later, and still hitting the apex well. So got this move done. And now we are moving ahead, position number 6, and see how we can now proceed on. So, braking point, once on the left the barrier ends, going into this corner, hitting the apex quite okay early on the throttle. So we have the Japanese car behind us, but so should be good enough if we get a good Eau Rouge here. So careful shifting down to 4, careful on the throttle, especially when you go over the curbs. That's typically the one where I tend to spin when you go full throttle over the curbs. So the car gets a bit unstable, and so that's why I lift off the throttle at this particular place. So now the main focus is on making a clean race not spinning, and making sure that we are reasonably quick. Because if you don't make mistakes, you can wait for others to make them, and in these conditions it is very likely that other people make a mistake. So that's why my focus was here, focusing on staying clean, don't make stupid mistakes, and trying to catch up. So we are catching up to the person in front, and actually, if you remember, this is the person who was starting behind us. So we are now just about to catch up, 1.4 seconds, getting closer, a nice comfortable gap to the car behind us, so we don't have to look in the mirror, we don't have to defend, so we can fully concentrate on making a clean lap here and reducing the gap, getting closer, and getting into slipstream. Braking hard, lifting, brakes, second gear here, so you can go into second gear. I often do this, but I try to save my tires to not accelerate too much. That's why I often shift up. It protects your tires and it also protects you from spinning around when going on the throttle. Next corner is the same, you can go in the third gear, so then either I just put the car straight and accelerate in the third gear, or I use the fourth gear. So both options work for me, and I still did not find out which one is the better one for me. It really depends on the exit. So now braking here a bit earlier than necessary, fourth gear into fifth gear, early on the throttle, and the person in front made a mistake. We tried to look into the inside here, but we are too far away for the move. But good news for us, a penalty, so it should help us to overtake. But honestly, let's see if we can make a clean overtake on the track. It's always nicer. So the Japanese is staying on the inside here. We go for the outside, try to get a better exit from the next corner. So braking a bit earlier. The Japanese is a little bit late on the brakes. We get the inside early on the throttle, still careful, so that we don't have too much wheel spin, and we are able to get the position. Now we need to survive Eau Rouge. I was thinking to not push too hard, so to make sure that we survive it, because we don't have much risk to be overtaken again, because the Japanese has to serve the penalty, so we don't have to push too hard here. So as you can see in the radar, the Japanese is catching up, so it would have been likely an overtake if there would be no penalty, but that is good for us, so there is no issue. But you can see there's only 0.6 seconds behind, so you don't lose too much time with the penalty if it's half a second penalty here. So we need to now get a bit of a gap so that we don't have to defend and don't have any risk for slipstream. And we are already moving out of slipstream, seems. Japanese made a small mistake, or braking a bit too early. So now we're looking to the car in front, so we have about 4.4 seconds and we see a yellow flag. So yellow flag is typically good news for us. So what's happening there? We see someone just respawned next to us, so we gained the position for free. So whatever happened in front is something where we could benefit from. So we suddenly made it to position number 4. So we lost more time to the leader, so already 14 seconds now. And now we need to see that we can make some really clean and quick laps to see how far we can get. So focusing on attacking the leader is probably almost impossible. Catching up 14 seconds to people who are reasonably as quick as we are won't work, but we can still make sure that we focus to push for a podium place, and if everything goes really well, we might be pushing for the fastest lap. So these were the two things which were still possible. So let us see what can happen here. Trying to be quick, trying to be focusing on making a clean but quick lap to be able to catch up, and we are catching up. So only 3.1 seconds now, so we were already catching up for, was it almost a second in this lap? So we have good chances. And there is a penalty, which is another good chance to get actually even closer. In terms of fastest lap, we made a 1:48.1, and we have to be a lot quicker to be able to work on the fastest lap here, so at least 1.2 seconds. So that's something where we need to now see on if we put a bit more risk in. But now let's first focus on surviving Eau Rouge. Always a corner where it's very easy to make a mistake, and see how we can actually catch up to the person in front of us now with the penalty being served. 2.3 seconds right now, penalty being served, so we are catching up. 2.1 and losing about half a second, so that's all what is actually lost. But we actually got much closer, and that's important, so we can see that we catch up the last only 1.5 seconds now to the person on the podium. Trying to stay here nice on the inside to be able to get early on the throttle. Also here trying to hit the apex nicely, so it's really important to always hit the apex nicely and make a clean and quick race here. Braking, I shift into the third gear, get a bit of rotation, almost too much rotation, shifting into fourth and trying to get the power on the track so that we can get a good exit speed out of the corner. Now we are really close and we can start to see where we can actually have a chance to overtake. So there's some options, but I think typically the best is when there is a mistake. So now here a little bit of drift, which gives us the opportunity to get closer but not yet to make any kind of move. But out of this corner there's usually a chance if you get a good exit. He's going pretty wide, so on the curb, so we could have done it, but we were also having issues with our traction, had to lift off throttle, so we were not able to use his mistake because we made one as well. Here, fourth gear, trying to hit the apex, but I was far out and just making it on the curbs without getting a penalty, so that was the most important part, but we lost a bit of time to the guy in front of us. So trying to catch up again, trying to be close for the long straight, but now we are out of slipstream right now, so we need to catch up and see whether we can go for a move on the straight. Trying to hit the apex nicely, trying to be early on the throttle, so we are catching up. Into the slipstream range. So we need now to have a very good Eau Rouge here. Hitting Eau Rouge quite nice. But he took a bit more risk, so we're actually not able to catch up on the straight. So we would need to take a bit more risk if we really want to catch up. And that's always what you need to learn on how much risk do you want to really attack, to overtake, and is the risk maybe too much, because you might just spin if you take too much risks. But there's still some laps to go, so we still will find chances for an attack, so let's see how we can push. And the advantage is, the closer you are, the more you push, the more you also push people into mistakes, because they feel the pressure from the back. So let's see if we can push him into a mistake and get some profit from it. And you can see here he was braking a bit too hard, car was sliding. We are a bit better out of the corner. Going next one is a left-hander, so we are on the better side, and we are able to get next to him and actually get the move done. So he was really struggling on the outside, so there's less grip, and so we got this done. So we made it to the podium, theoretically, if we don't bin it, because still some time to go. When looking at the gap to the leaders, so we see now we have 10 seconds, and now we need to see what can we do. Can we catch up these 10 seconds, or at least go for a fastest lap? And now looking at the fastest lap, so the person improved on 2:46.6, which is actually even quicker. Looking at our fastest lap with a 2:48.1, we definitely have to do something. So focus again, making it clean, but definitely making it quicker than before. Because at least the fastest lap is something we want to fight on. Two laps remaining, 2 chances for the fastest lap and to catch up. 4.6 seconds to the number 2. And if you remember correctly, the number 2 was actually the person who gave us this nice little boost in Eau Rouge in the first lap, which made us go out and lose a lot of time. Probably about 6-7 seconds, so probably exactly what is now missing, unfortunately, but let's see what we can do here. Focus is now getting it really quick through Eau Rouge, so we need to take a bit more risks, sliding slightly, but keeping on full throttle to just take higher risks. But we want to go for the fastest lap, so we definitely have to take the risks here. Full speed, typically in the qualifying of 44, low is good. We are a bit above, but that's fine. So we don't want to go for a qualifying lap here, but we want to go for a 46 something. Last lap we made it to the 2:47.5. Yellow flag we quickly saw. And at first thought there is a chance, but it was not the number 2, so we can just see that there is also a car which is lapped almost. So that was the yellow flag. So we want to go back for the fast lap. Our last lap was 2:47.5. We need about 1 second being better to make it. We're just drifting here through this corner, but just able to catch it. It's very easy to get into a drift when you brake too hard while steering in. So now we get closer to the car to overtake. Bit of sliding, but we don't care. Car is ghosted. We just ignore that car, ignore the existence of this car, and trying to focus on being quick here. Again, hitting the apex nicely, being early on the throttle in the second gear here, pushing a bit more on the tires. We have 0.9 gap, so we're trying to keep it to 1 second, because if we have 1 second, then we can actually beat the fastest lap. So we are in a good way, but we really need to get it through the last corners here. So hitting the apex nicely, early on the throttle in the 5th gear. So we got this one right, and now we just need to get the chicane right. Braking early, steering in, hitting the apex nicely. That went well. A very, very slow last corner, and then on the throttle and see whether we can make it or not. And we just made it 1.3, and the goal of being 1 second quicker than the last lap worked exactly well. 1/1000th of a second difference from the 1 second to the last lap. So we got the fastest lap. We got closer, as you can see. We're just 3 seconds away from the number 2. So it's something where we would need maybe 1 or 2 laps more or a mistake. So let's see what happens in the last lap. Eau Rouge we took very bad, so we actually lost time here. So we could have gained a lot of more time if we got this right. So again, I was more careful in Eau Rouge rather than pushing here, because we got the fastest lap. And now focus is on bringing it home at least, and see whether we can get any benefit from a mistake, or at least get closer. So we lost time, 3.1 second, so we lost time in this segments, and now we need to see that we can catch up a bit and see what we could actually do in this last lap. So getting slightly closer, and you can see the number 1 is also close, is in range. So typically with the speed we have, 2 more laps and it would have been a really nice fight on the track. Now we have to wait for a mistake, but we don't have, let's say, a chance to win it now from our own performance. Lost also there a bit of time, so this lap was definitely not a good lap for me. But now again catching up a bit in this last seconds here. So 2/10 just catch up, 3/10 almost. So we gain the time in this last sectors here. But as you can see, we're 7/10 down to the last lap. So yeah, if you calculate the 7/10 up, so we would be 1 point something away. But it doesn't make a difference because it is the final lap. So there is no difference between being far away or being close. The only thing would be if we can attack or not. But we cannot, and if they don't make a mistake in the last chicane or yellow flag, no, unfortunately, nothing we can get from. So yeah, we are really close, and we end up 4 seconds behind the leader and 2.2 seconds behind the number 2, and made it. So the race was really good, and I liked it because it has everything. So we had the crash, or almost crashed, the punt, and we had to save it. We had a lot of difficult situations, but we finally got the fastest lap and made a clean race. So for me, this race was a real fun race, and I must say I was not sure about the Spa wet setup, if that's a good idea or not. But to be honest, I think there are really nice races coming out of this, and I like to race there. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching, and maybe I see you on the track.